the thorns embrace.
You're a loser, baby, a loser. You're a loser, baby, a loser. You're a
Let's go! I'm finally done with school. I prayed for times like this. I ain't never going back. Fuck school. Let's go! Wait, since I'm not in school anymore, I can do whatever I want. How you doing? Your total is $2 even. Here you go. Keep the change. Thank you so much. We need more people like you in the world. Man, I'm on the game all night. Bro, it's 3 a.m. though. It don't matter that it's 3 in the morning, bro. I don't gotta wake up in the morning. I don't got no bedtime, dude. Wait, I'm grown. And I'm broke as hell. I gotta get a job.
Straight Pride in the center of Moscow. Это будет жестко, это будет жестко. Парад натуралов, натуралов, парад натуралов, Straight.
Add another track.
Like, we live in a society where Lizzo is really overweight and people think that she's a 10. Would you rate her a 10?
Yeah, I guess. Like, I think all women are a 10, to be honest.
All women.
Yeah.
But-
I think
but-
I go outside and honestly, like, I see like 10 beautiful girls. I see like a fine man like every 2.5 years, if I'm gonna be honest.
So
I go outside and I see beautiful women everywhere.
I mean, this is kind of interesting. So not all men are 10s, but all women are 10s.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have a thing against men.
No, I don't really have a thing against men.
You can
I
be
love
honest.
men.
You can
No,
be
I
honest.
love men. I don't hate men. I
If
don't
the
know.
roles were reversed, they'd call them misogynistic, but you can say that and it's okay.
Yeah, I guess.
So you see a good-looking man how often? Every 2 years.
2.5 years.
2.5 years. Okay, wow.
Like, we live in
I know the pretty bro, always think about her. And when she says hi to me, butterflies go right through me. And when I see her dancing, wanna take a chance in getting a little closer and maybe get to know her. I know.
It's not as simple as
I know we on two different teams, but can you be my running back right fast? All right, this is what we're gonna do. I got the football right here. So this is what we're gonna do. Look, we're gonna do a.
It is my dream house. It's mine.
No,
Why is Taylor Swift sporting a 60 on the back of her jacket instead of an 87? We're talking full outfit details for Taylor Swift at today's Super Bowl Chiefs game. Taylor looks absolutely stunning. She is cool.
I don't.
You couldn't pay me money to go to this year's Super Bowl. I don't know why I can't shake this feeling that something terrible is going to happen at the Super Bowl. I just have such... It's just sitting right here in my chest. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. I pray to God that it doesn't happen, but you couldn't pay me money to be there because my gut, my instincts have never...
Kylie infamously fell.
This is exactly. Give us a path, guys. Give us a path. Thank you. Give it clear away, guys. Thank you.
Hey, I'm going to enjoy it with you guys over here.
If you see this on your wall, do not pop it. Money!
To be honest with you guys, the best course of action here is to call a water damage restoration company to fix this problem. In the clip that you guys just watched, we can see that this person has something known as a water bubble on their wall. This happens from an excess buildup of moisture, which removes the adhesion of the paint from the wall, creating a pocket of water. The people in this video end up popping this water bubble, but there's a few things that you should know before you decide to do this. First and foremost, you need to know exactly where this water came from. Did it come from a leaky roof and the water ended up running down behind the wall? Did it come from a pipe?
The Steelers have breaking news here on a Monday as the team announced today that they are releasing quarterback Mitch.
Update on the Supreme Court case. This happened a couple of days ago, but we wanted to pair it with some of the more latest legal Trump developments. There's been some major things happening, but the major headline really from the last few days was the Supreme Court really, how do you say this? Defenestrating the Colorado Secretary of State and their legal team who were trying to block Donald Trump's name from the ballot. We have a mashup here of bipartisan justices to really just skewer their defense of the law from the interpretation that they tried. Here's what they had to say.
I think the reason it's been dormant is because there's been a settled understanding that Chief Justice Chase, even if not right in every detail, was essentially right, and the branches of the government have acted under that settled understanding for 155 years, and Congress can change that. And Congress does have Section 2383, of course, the Insurrection Act criminal statute, but Congress could change it, but they have not in 155 years in relevant respects for what you want here today, at least.
No, Justice Kavanaugh. The reason why it's been dormant is because by 1876, essentially all former Confederates had received amnesty, and we haven't seen anything like an insurrection since then.
Would anything compel a lower official to obey an order from, in your view, the former president?
I'm imagining a situation where, for example, a former president was a president was elected and they were 25 and they were ineligible to hold office, but nevertheless they were put into that office.
we're talking about Section 3. Please don't change the hypothetical, okay? Please don't change the hypothetical. I know I like doing it too, but please don't do it, okay?
Well, the point I'm trying to make is
he's disqualified from the moment he committed an insurrection, whoever it is, whichever party, that happens. Boom, it happened. What would compel, and I'm not going to say it again, so just try and answer the question. If you don't have an answer, fair enough, we'll move on.
And I read your opening brief to accept that those events counted as an insurrection, but then your reply seemed to suggest that they were not. So what is your position as to that?
We never accepted or conceded in our opening brief that this was an insurrection. What we said in our opening brief was President Trump did not engage in any act that can plausibly be characterized as insurrection.
All right, so why would this not be an insurrection? What is your argument that it's not? Your reply brief says that it wasn't because I think you say it did not involve an organized attempt to overthrow the government. So
that's one of many reasons, but for an insurrection, there needs to be an organized, concerted effort to overthrow the government of the United States through violence. And this
so
riot
your point is that a
occurred,
chaotic effort to overthrow the government is not an insurrection?
No, we didn't concede that it's an effort to overthrow the government either, Justice Jackson. Right? None of these criteria were met. This was a riot. It was not an insurrection.
So what we included there at the end was actually Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was speaking against the Trump people. Now, if listen, in terms of our legal analysis, we're not lawyers, and Supreme Court law is like a whole other one. One of the comments I found most noteworthy was from Neil Katyal. I think you've done a monologue on him before, Crystal. This is like a dyed-in-the-wool, like a classic MSNBC Russiagate type Democrat, but he's one of those, lots of corporate connections, etc. But MSNBC relies on him for legal analysis, which is fair because he's actually argued quite a few cases before the Supreme Court. Here was
on behalf of like really terrible outfits.
But here was his assessment of the Colorado case and their defense before the court.
I've watched over 400 Supreme Court arguments. I've done 50 myself. I would tell you this argument did not go well for the Trump challengers, and that's to put it mildly. I probably have some other adjectives that I won't say on air.
There you have it. Didn't go so well, and people are expecting either it could be 9-0 or possibly 8-1, depending on how Ketanji Brown Jackson or Sonia Sotomayor end up ruling in this case. Any reaction, Crystal, before we move on to the next legal development?
I mean, it's not surprising whatsoever, because it was it's a sort of unprecedented situation, aggressive reading of the Constitution. There were other states in the country that went in the opposite direction of what Colorado did. And the Supreme Court is fundamentally, and I don't mean this on like the typical political spectrum, but just as like a descriptor, it's a fundamentally conservative body that is loath and sort of cowardly, but loath to really insert themselves in the political process in this way. Now, in a lot of ways, that's going to be sort of unavoidable, as we're about to discuss. They are going to have to decide whether they're going to take up an appeal from Trump with regards to whether he should have blanket immunity for basically anything that he did in the context of the presidency. They're going to have to decide whether to let the appeals court ruling on that stand or take that up. There are going to be possibly a number of other things that come before them. So they are going to be central to this election, whether they want to or not. And obviously not going in the direction of Colorado is also a decision and also consequential. But this is not surprising. This is what everybody was effectively predicting from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, just it was such a novel interpretation, quote unquote.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
Because it was prior to a trial. But that gets us to the real part. And this is where the Supreme Court case could be a lot more interesting and actually could very much turn on Trump. Let's put this next one up on the screen. Donald Trump actually asked the Supreme Court late last night to pause the ruling that was denying him, quote, absolute immunity. So this is a little bit complicated, but basically there was a previous appeal in which the president said that the election interference trial, which is currently trying to have a court date and all of that set. One of the challenges that Trump and his team issued in the appeals court, the D.C. Court of Appeals, was that was subsequently rejected, was that the president has, quote, absolute immunity from criminal prosecution from while he is president. According to them, quote, without immunity from criminal prosecution, the presidency as we know it will cease to exist. These were according to the Trump lawyers. Like I said, this has been rejected now by 2 subsequent appeals courts. Noteworthy, though, though, that these appeals courts are far more liberal, I guess, in terms of their appointments. I'm not making a partisan judgment or even really, frankly, a judgment on the case itself, but more so just setting it up for what the Supreme Court is now going to have to consider. He has now, by asking the court to have this consideration, it will then trigger the process on their part of whether they're going to accept the case or not. If they don't accept the case, then it will default, Crystal, to the lower court of appeals as opposed to having something that they would rule on. And now, whether they take it, as I said, is up to the court on which of the three justices, Amy Coney Barrett, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh, as of how to whether they will take that case before them. Apparently, just in terms of the way that the swing votes and all of that currently lie. But it's one of those where I'm actually not really, outside of Kavanaugh and Alito, who I believe have more of an interpretation on executive power. This is even the type of thing where Clarence Thomas, who there's a major case going on right now about administrative law, he's more libertarian than others. I would not expect them, at least according to the people I've spoken to, FedSoc, others, that this would be a case that Trump is going to win, even if it did get accepted by the court. And they may just punt and not take it, because that's probably the easiest political course for them as well.
Especially because the appeals court ruling was quite clear.
Yeah, it was just like, that's not
quite aggressive.
It's just not how it works.
And even, it's the appeals court panel, it was 3 judges, 2 Democratic appointees, 1 Republican appointee. It was unanimous. We played, if you guys will recall, a little bit of the oral arguments where they were pretty scathing. They were basically like, oh, so the president could just like,
move on quickly, but this is an easy segue as long as we're talking about people who are bitter, uneducated, and hate children. I do want to get into, because I know you guys have talked about this on your show, and it is a corner of the internet that I'm kind of fascinated with. And I'm talking about, now that our Chapo Trap House is gone, probably the single most charming Reddit subgroup is R Child Free. And I actually, you guys have delved into this on your show, but how would you describe the ethos or the prevailing ideology of R Child Free? And then I have some choice selections from the group.
Well, there are people who just don't have kids, and that's like 99% of my friends, and they're fine, normal people, friends of mine. Then there are people who their whole personality is like being a new atheist, except for not having kids. Right. So they're like epic science for the win. I did a dunk on someone in public and everybody clapped. It's a very extreme kind of exaggerated form of who I am is not only not having, but actually hating children and their parents, which leads to a lot of funny hijinks on that subreddit.
It seems like their main concern is things that take place in movie theaters and toy stores. Because these are adult men.
With Kevin D. Williamson.
yeah, absolutely. It's like these are adult men who spend a lot of time in malls, toy stores, and movie theaters, and consuming entertainment for children, who are obsessed with the idea that the intended audience and target demographic for the products and things that they enjoy are in fact children themselves. And I'm just going to read one here. This is an R Child Free post that I have to read here. Headline: Is anyone else just sick of Baby Yoda? The stupid, disgusting green crotch spawn drives me insane. Who cares if two Yodas fuck? It just encourages crotch spawn mentality and pro-crotch spawn spaces. Plus, you just absolutely know some little disgusting, sickly child painted green will win best costume at the opening night of The Rise of Skywalker, despite the hundreds of hours of effort put in by actual fans. It makes my blood boil. This stupid green cunt.
Does he think that the Baby Yoda isn't a puppet? It's like just a kid that they found.
No, he's imagining that his Kit Fisto costume that he spent all that time on will go unrecognized because of some damn kid.
But
that's upsetting.
What I think is illuminating about that is that he's furious at Baby Yoda and as a Star Wars character that's appealing to children, but of course, like everyone who cares about this does because they got into Star Wars when they were children, and like this, it just seems to be this like weird, like sort of psychological distancing of like hating children in childhood among adult men to cover up for the fact that like emotionally they haven't like progressed past being a child or having an unhappy childhood.
We also have to acknowledge that we don't know if two Yodas fuck.
They could reproduce, parthenogenically.
That's true. I mean, it is canon that Anakin Skywalker was immaculately conceived through force manipulation by Darth Sidious, so we don't know how beings as powerful as the Yodas reproduce. But I would think that even if you hate the Baby Yoda for being a baby, and if you're one of these people, you would love the Baby Yoda for eating all of those eggs of the space frog, thus like aborting a ton of potential crotch spawn from existence.
It's a net win.
Yeah.
I'm imagining this guy sitting in the theater getting extremely pissed at Rise of Skywalker, not because it sucked, but because there are like porgs and they're baby-like.
Yeah, I love all the like everyone who gets mad about Star Wars. Like one way or the other. Either people who like I don't know for like some political reason they like the new one or they hate it. Or like just going through the trouble to get that like Gina Carano fired,
Oh, yeah.
or like being mad that she got fired, one way or the other, because it's like at the end of the day, it's like you've spent 12 years arguing over like Star Wars, The Pacifier Adventures, Baby Force One. Like this is just the Muppets. That's literally all this is. This is so strictly for babies.
And it reminds you that the best way to understand a lot of this very like emphatic cult, like identity-based hostility to children is really just the anger of a kid when a younger kid comes into the family. Like I'm baby. Why are you looking at that baby? I'm baby. Like everyone's an overgrown child and they don't want attention to anyone else because that's what kids like.
It reminds me of something I did that I'm very embarrassed of that I did when I was like 5. And there was a kid like probably 2 years younger than me, like a 3-year-old at the playground, and he jumped down like one set of steps on the playground, and his mom went like, good job, Ryan. And I was like, I just went down 3 steps. I know I was 5, but like I'm still very embarrassed.
Matt does that to our kids all the time, to our own children. And he has, like, we were at an aquarium one time in Boston, and there were a ton of little school kids behind us. And there was a cuttlefish. I was like, oh, look, a cuttlefish. They're really smart. And Matt goes, not as smart as me. Like a dozen children behind us.
Well,
And our
he's
kids will be
technically
like,
correct. He's technically correct.
No, he's not wrong.
my daughter will be like, I can't touch the door. Matt's like, I can. Bam.
Owned.
I don't know what's going to happen with that.
That is an underrated benefit of having kids is you get to feel like a god. Damn, these kids, like you don't know that I'm still here after I put my hands in front of my face, you idiot.
Well, here's one more clip from the Our Child Free that I think sums up a lot of what's going on here. Just reading here, it says, society really needs to let go of this idea of unconditional love when it comes to kids. A baby doesn't love you unconditionally. A baby is a bundle of 100% pure selfishness. It wants what it wants when it wants it. And to be honest, most babies under 6 months probably don't care much about who. They're just a massive black hole of time and energy. And what I love so much about that is like he's like, the concept of unconditional love as it applies to children means the parent's love for the child, not a newborn infant's love for its parents. Yes, you're right. It's an infant. It doesn't have self-awareness yet. It means the parent unconditionally loves the child despite it being a black hole of time, energy, and selfishness.
But the thing is, this person, they can't imagine being a child, but they can imagine hypothetically being a parent. And so it's all about, well, what about me? Where is the love for me? It's because it's all transactional. That's like they can't even imagine it as being anyone doing anything for any reason other than self-interest.
I'm surprised that no one has floated the idea that little children are abusers.
They need to be held accountable, honestly.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. We need to start holding babies
they just
accountable.
Scream at you. They break their promises all the time.
Constantly. They lie. They steal from you.
They're kind of violent.
The first thing they do, really, that they learn how to do is gaslight. Like, little kids gaslight probably more than anyone.
Jane takes credit for everything.
Oh, yeah.
She told Matt that she and God made all the buildings in our city together.
Just straight face, no joke.
Yeah,
just
she's like,
yeah,
we did that.
Mm-hmm.
We made that one. That one. And I was extremely gaslit by that. Well, I think the other thing about Child Free that I always notice that's really funny and again makes it feel like an extremely immature place is that there's a lot of emphasis put on how disgusting and kind of just wrong and maybe even like kind of pedophiliac it is that sex makes babies. They're like furious about that fact.
Well, I mean, that was whoever decided they should be brought into the world that way really up.
I mean, I understand that, it's maybe not what you expected to hear when you were a little kid, but I think that's why they focus on stuff like crotch spawn.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how disgusting it is. They're made by sex. There's sex, and then there's a baby and and they're the vagina. And all that. This is unacceptable. And I'm like, yeah, man. I mean, most people come to terms with it at some point.
I mean, I don't know. It just seems like, whether you're on the left or the right, and I remember probably one of the times I've got in the most trouble for something I've said on the show is when I simply answered a question by saying that it's okay to have kids if you want them to, despite how the world is. And a lot of people, I don't know, it's just people's anxiety over that. And it's just regardless of what you may think about the environment or, having or not having kids, it seems like it's a bad situation for any culture or civilization if a critical mass of people just decide there's no point in reproducing yourself or the human race or just having a future with people in it. I mean, even if you make, I'm not saying if you there are good and bad reasons to come to that conclusion or whatever, but it seems like regardless of where you come on the political ideological spectrum, it would seem that job number one of a politics that worth supporting is creating the conditions in which families can, or the reproduction of children and their transformation from crotch spawn into confident adults would be job number one, or you would be policy is about making sure that that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fundamental feature of the human life. I mean, I found it very weird, when I got into this, I wasn't trying to, I don't know, encourage people to have kids or make some kind of statement that way. I was just like, well, this is something our welfare state is lacking that others aren't, and it would solve a good deal of our problems, so let's go ahead and do it. And to see that, no, actually, it's extremely charged, and people get very upset about it. It's I just don't. I mean, to me, it's almost like asking, well, should we have retired people? It's what,
people do ask that.
I mean, but don't open that door, Matt. I mean,
well, not even should people retire, but I guess I would say, should we have anyone over the age of 70?
Who was it? Who was the Obama guy who said
it was Rahm Emanuel's brother.
Beyond 75,
brother.
So we should just be doing Soylent Green shit and wheeling them in and just turning them into nutrient
and it was
slurry.
fascinating.
It was Ari and Rahm's brother.
Yeah, it was Zeke Emanuel,
the doctor.
Zeke Emanuel, who's one of the top brain surgeons in the country. And the way he justified it was fascinating too, because he was yeah, sure. If you're above 75, you may say oh, you have a productive life or it's fulfilling to you because you like going on bike rides or reading books or cooking a meal or taking it easy. But he's by my metric, that doesn't count as a productive or justifiable life, and it's just like, speak for yourself, asshole. What are you talking about?
He's saying what other people value is not important. Only what he values is, without wondering whether in fact he's the psychopath for wanting to spend all of his time working.
Well, I mean, he's taking seriously the ideas of our society, which is that you are as valuable as your productive capacity, and small children and old people are not productive. So what do you do about them? And if there's no obligation to anybody who can't help you and who cannot whose productivity you can't benefit from, then the answer has to be, you just let's see what happens, or maybe you have to be more proactive than that. They have to be worked out of the equation at some point.
Yeah, we can't just straight up kill people past a certain age, because that would be monstrous. But what we need to do is we need to disincentivize living past a certain point.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
it's like self-deportation for the astral plane.
But this is so how short-sighted is this? Because children in the immediate short term are not producing. In fact, they're only taking from society. But that's because you're investing them in one day them being the workers or people maintaining the civilization that they're going to inherit. And old people have been doing it for decades. I mean, even based on this stupid having to justify yourself to breathe oxygen on this planet, it would seem that the old people have earned it, and that the young people are it's not just a drain, because they're going to be productive later in life. In fact, will be more productive the more you invest in them.
Right. The kids are learning. The people who are in the middle, they make hay while the sun is shining, and then there's a time for people to rest and look back with life in satisfaction. And I think that's one of maybe Weber's original points in thinking about disenchantment. Is there was a point where in history you could, finish your work in this life and rest and look back and say, yeah, I worked. I did my part, and that was it. And that doesn't happen anymore. I mean, you still work. You work until you die in this country. And also kids are though people get mad if you say they're non-workers or, workers in waiting, everything about our education system is optimized to make them good workers or better workers, or to, kind of compete well in the meritocracy. I think it's just part of living in a really disenchanted society that eventually people are going to come around to, why are we here at all? There's no point. Maybe there shouldn't be any people.
Yeah, it's just an algorithm.
Yeah.
We can all live on the cloud.
Charlie Kirk and his organization, Turning Point USA, which is it's
a diaper fetish group.
Yeah,
pretending to be political.
Exists to fight campus culture war bullshit and get college Republicans to play the victim because they're mean fellow student. Because basically nobody likes them, because the lowest form of life imaginable is a college Republican. Yeah. So this week, a fellow TPUSA, comrade or fellow traveler, member of TPU at Toilet Paper USA, tried to do this thing where to gin up outrage and get a professor fired or harassed for giving comments on a personal essay she wrote that seemed to correct not her writing but her point of view, to say that people kneeling for the national anthem in NFL games are in fact correct, and you would have gotten an A if you had agreed with my liberal point of view.
Because this comes on the heel of them making a big push about how there is systematic discrimination against conservative ideas in college classes by professors. That was the claim. And of course, that led people to say, is there any evidence for this? And this was the attempt say this is proof that conservative students are being discriminated against because of their ideas.
I'm not going to say it was an essay. It's about 2.5 pages, double spaced.
The margins are 4 inches. It's like a new inquiry article. It's right down the middle.
They posted screenshots of these professors' comments, which of course everyone could see was just very basic suggestions on how to write an essay.
Make something not sound like you were 12.
And the person who wrote this is a TPUSA person. And before I get into this, I had some brief pang of something people were like, hey, maybe don't make fun of this on the show. She's just a dumb college kid, which is true, but she's also a op, 1,000%.
She's getting cool cash.
We need to stop fetishizing the youth, because some of these apple-cheeked children are the youth bund.
Yeah, see the movie The White Ribbon, okay? We should have dragged those kids before they turned into Hitler.
Do you mean the op as in operative or op as like Chief Keef says?
Both.
Okay, cool.
Both. I mean op in both senses of the word.
All right.
Okay, so this is I'm just going to read now her essay called Standing Up for Freedom.
Her essay, which was wrongly docked points because of wrong think. That's why. Because there was double plus ungood wrong think by a thought critic.
Oh, and then right before we jump into this, this is TPUSA at Kent State, famous for, you remember the famous diaper guy?
No, no, it's in Kansas.
It's in Kansas?
Yeah, it's not. TPUSA Kent State is just the most famous branch.
Okay, but she took place in the diaper protest. The woman who wrote this article was blowing bubbles in the with next to the adult diaper
I think
guy.
that's the woman who put it out.
Okay,
because it wasn't the student. She is a TPUSA person, but she sent it to the Kent State lady, and then she put it out there.
Okay. All right, let's now read from, again, this essay is corrected, but I'm only going to, as it was originally written.
The original masterpiece.
Yes. Standing up for freedom. Ever since I was young, I always stood for the national anthem, and so did everyone around me. When entering high school, I found myself frustrated at the Friday night football games when someone would talk or wear a ball cap during the national anthem. I never thought by the time I entered college, people would be taking a knee during the national anthem. For me and my family, it felt like a punch in the gut. Not just a punch where you can punch right back, but one that you aren't expecting and it knocks the wind out of you.
Well, is this Proust? This is so evocative.
Not just a regular punch, but one of those punches where they spin their arm really, really fast.
Like a
and then
cartoon.
hit you and you go through the ceiling and then you're in the other floor and there's a big lump on your head and then there are birds flying around it.
Honestly, if this lady just drew a picture of Thomas the Tank Engine running over Colin Kaepernick while he's kneeling, she wouldn't have been done. They wouldn't have done 1984 The Animal Farm to her or whatever. It would be more concise than this bullshit.
I believe everyone who is a United States citizen should stand for the national anthem out of respect for the men and women who risk their lives daily for the freedoms of the United States citizens.
By the way, this is a very interesting, uniquely American thing, too, that I've heard other people say. And they're like, you've turned your national anthem into the dead troops anthem. Like, we're just like, yeah, we like baguettes, or, you know, we it's a much vaguer. It's more like the Puerto Rican flag, where they just have it because they like it in every other country.
Yeah, I mean, Americans' favorite thing to do is to get pissed, and the thing you can get the most pissed off about is imagining people disrespecting soldiers. We have like I'm not saying economically or anything, but culturally we have the most psychotic.
Well, we feel politically impotent, so we get culturally care-lord.
Right, and we have this insane militaristic culture, but it's sort of filtered through this weird outrage style thing. I mean, Amber, you've always talked about people weaponizing fragility, and I think one of the first places we saw that in mainstream culture was people just extrapolating things to mean that they were offensive to soldiers and offensive to people's sacrifices.
Well, that's definitely that's definitely the post-Iraq biggest phenomenon of that.
But talk about enforcing confines around people. You know, the first flank they did with Iraq was I don't care what you think about the war, but you have to support the troops, which is perfect because it's a completely nebulous concept.
It means nothing.
It doesn't mean shit.
It means support the war they're fighting in. That's what it means.
But support the troops is affordable care for conservatives. You know, it's a meaningless term that they can just blanket over anything.
Well, you say it's meaningless, but let's see what this young lady has to say about what it means to her.
Let's see what Talking Points Noseguard has.
Coming to college, I never pictured a conversation topic being if people should be standing, kneeling, or sitting. Or,
no, wait. Go back.
Let's read this sentence again. DJ, run that back. Coming to college, I never pictured a conversation topic being if people should be standing, kneeling, sitting, or any other form of protest.
That's a lot of Jaron.
For the
Jesus
national
Christ.
anthem.
That's Jaron. That's Jaronditocracy right there.
My first semester, I saw.
Dear Penthouse, I never thought this would happen to me.
This is.
I got inged up the ing.
This is Blink 182. Small things. Watching. Sitting, kneeling.
Never kneeling.
Say it ain't so, I will not go. stand on the field. Kaepernick's a hoe.
My first semester, I saw multiple protests over this very subject. In the first month of classes, I got an email from a classmate that stated, "Join the Student Power Coalition and WOKE," which stands for here, World of Colored Empowerment, colored spelled with a K. I'd just like to say I don't think this exists.
I hope not.
Be perfectly honest, if that does exist, the SJWs have gone too far. That's a terrible. That's a terrible acronym.
That's not SJWs. That's like Capadonna. That's a '90s rapper with that type of misspelling, purposeful misspelling.
This felt like such a battle for something that seems like a simple courtesy.
She really takes the scenic route on all her sentences.
I stand for the national anthem and the flag of my country.
No shit.
Because I was brought up in a home that is rooted in a military background. I was raised by my grandfather, who is a veteran of the United States Army. She goes on to list all the people she knows who, served in the military.
No, nothing about how this has anything to do with the stupid anthem in the first place.
The flag means
again. It's just the anthem has become the dead troop anthem.
The flag means many things to so many people, but to me, it is something more. The United States flag is a symbol of freedom, commitment, honor, bravery, sacrificial love, and dedication. The flag, though it has been changed many times over the years, still encompasses these basic principles.
I will never recognize Wyoming.
Okay, you guys ready for this next sentence?
Don't go for it.
When the founding fathers came to America to form a more perfect union,
Great.
I know this is for an English class, but I can think of one thing wrong with that.
Well, no, but see, that's from the Gettysburg Address, so it's actually very literary. And smart.
That's called an illusion.
Yeah.
They inspired when the founding fathers came to America to form a more perfect union. They inspired generations to come to stand for the causes they believed in. They inspired the fight from the man that is obviously still ongoing.
Who is the man in this sentence?
I would like to
Not
say
the cops that shoot black people at will.
In this graded paper, the phrase that she puts in quotes, "the man," is just circled with a question mark next to it. The flag was designed showing the strength of the 13 original colonies in the stripes and the 50 states in the stars.
When it was designed with the 50 states?
No. The original 13 colonies.
Was Betsy Ross, does she have psychic powers?
She already acknowledged that the flag has changed, so now she's explaining what the current version
she says,
is.
in the stars, showing the unity and progress of them. I stand for a flag of freedom.
Hell yeah.
I believe that everyone should stand for the national anthem to honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice of their lives. I would think the statement alone would be enough to convince people to stand, but unfortunately it is not. I believe everyone should stand because everyone knows someone who has risked it all. We are so privileged as to have the option to stand.
We've all known somebody who went up to that girl who's reading at the bar. That girl who you just know she's never had a man really who could satisfy her.
Yeah, I mean it's very someone about to participate in a breakdancing competition. They're gonna risk it all.
We are so privileged as to have the option to stand and honor or protest.
The option.
In
Wait, admitted that
like
there's an option.
Well, okay, here we go. Let me just get through this whole sentence because, man, it is a car wreck. We are so privileged as to have the option to stand and honor or protest in disrespect, unlike other countries. We have the privilege to show pride in who we are as Americans and what we say, do, or wear.
Gibberish.
Other countries like North Korea have no access to a public internet or any way to show their pride for a country of censorship. Wrong. The North Koreans love showing pride for their country. They love standing for their flag.
Yeah, she should love North Korea. You have to stand for the anthem.
By the way, we started.
What does the internet have to do with it?
They go off for their national anthem.
You know, we started this episode talking about really impressive national displays of solidarity. By the way, in the Winter Olympics, the breakout star of this year's Winter Olympics are the North Korean cheering sections.
Oh yeah,
who have these really cool, coordinated chants and cheers for their country and their flag.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a privilege.
You should love that.
That's a privilege to do that.
Instead of singing some dour song about rockets, they're out there killing. There was a funny article that was like the dastardly North Korean propaganda. They pick cheerleaders based on attractiveness. And it's like, oh
Is
my
Jerry
God.
Jones in Scars of That Country now?
Yeah, it's just America reading that. I would never do that.
I think it is wrong to protest the national anthem for the sole fact that people died believing in the flag that we stand for.
They believed that the flag existed.
You know how many fucking you know how many Koreans died for the fucking North Korean flag? A lot,
Like
fucking
a lot.
quite a few. I believe it is wrong for people to protest the anthem because it is disrespecting a symbol of our country's pride. America is the best country in the world with the most freedoms. To protest and disrespect
But never do it.
is absurd.
Never do it.
People believed so much in the United States anthem and flag that they literally gave and risked their lives for. And if someone believes anything means more than their freedom, they are wrong.
People risked their lives to retain
Gibberish.
the institution of chattel slavery.
Well, we should respect that flag too, Amber.
People risk their lives.
That's why I've never knelt at Grand Ole Opry.
People risk their lives to secure Lebensraum for the German people.
We have the duty to, at minimum, stand for an anthem that people literally gave everything for us.
Oh my God.
I will continue to stand and encourage all to stand for the United States national anthem to honor the one person they know that served or serves. I will encourage and remain standing for the anthem of my great nation as it is the right thing to do. I will stand for my friends and family who believed in my freedom so highly they were willing to die for me to have my privileges and freedoms. I believe everyone should stand for the United States national anthem because someone believes so highly in this country that they will die for a stranger to be free.
Because life is precious, and God, and the Bible.
And U.S. Americans.
That is...
In conclusion, America is a land of contrasts.
Like, that's not really any worse than most freshmen fucking writing, because kids suck at writing.
I mean, I've taught
half-wits.
freshman writing.
How would you grade this, Amber?
Well, I wouldn't because I teach freshman writing. And basically, I give them a lot of time to revise. And a lot of what I do is say, read this out loud. Because that is how you learn whether you are making, the language words for the ears and the eyes, or whether you are just vomiting up weird sounds.
This is like if
I would say this requires revision.
I just want to read here the teacher's comments at the end of this awful lib professor. Clara, you make the same point repeatedly and do not take into account why some people are kneeling. I am also concerned about the contradiction. Decent writing, but look at my notes about sentence revisions.
Wow, that's incredibly polite.
That's very gentle.
That's so
also,
nice.
Any argument you have has to that is like the most obvious criticism. Any argument you have has to actually address the thing you're arguing with, which she never does once. And also it sounds insane.
It was
word
horrible.
salad.
It's gibberish. But the thing is that the main the chief sort of conservative critique of the academy in the last couple of generations was we've turned universities into these self-esteem factories for these kids. We don't make any requirements of them. We don't want to disabuse them of the false notions that they think, well, I'm smart enough, because you have to know that you're not good in order to become better, blah, blah, blah. And we're just creating this culture of permissiveness and no intellectual rigor. And now TPUSA has basically created a rubric for conservative students to go to college and say, and walk around thinking, you are already a genius because you're conservative, and any criticism, any bad grade you get is the result of liberal bias. And how the fuck is that going to encourage anything other than absolute soft brain idiocy? Like, this woman is never going to get any better.
Her brain.
at
Yeah,
thinking or
sorry,
writing.
conservatives. Not
Yeah.
everyone gets a trophy.
Yeah, it's like it is participation trophies, and they want them for being literally politically correct.
Yeah.
So, in conclusion,
I'm
F.
standing
plus.
for flag.
F plus. You got
I
an
am
F
doing
plus.
me. I am standing for flag.
For a generation of YouTube fans, MrBeast has become an almost mythical figure. An ordinary guy creating extraordinary spectacles out of sometimes strangely ordinary topics, from counting to 100,000 to playing tag and hide and seek, and all for eye-watering cash prizes. He's buried himself alive, recreated Squid Games, and given away a desert island. He's known for giving those big prizes, cash, houses, cars and food, to friends, strangers, and as philanthropy, and he's built a channel with 90 million subscribers, in doing so earning around 54 million a year according to Forbes. He started a nationwide burger chain, been on Jimmy Kimmel, Joe Rogan, employs over 100 people, and has been at the forefront of some of the biggest philanthropic campaigns on YouTube.
But MrBeast is part of a larger story. The story of American capitalism, corporate profit and politics. The story of American mythology. It's a story that takes some surprising turns, one in which a complacent media has neglected to follow the money. A story with a narrative that's been shaped, twisted and manipulated by corporations like Coca-Cola, monolith chemical and shipping companies, international meat monopolies, and the deep pockets of big oil. It's a shadowy story of injured workers, low wages, shady deals, collusion, pollution, bribery, and even suicides.
What we can see through MrBeast is not speculation, but a perfect postmodern example of how capitalist mythology is manufactured, how it hangs together and shapes all of our lives.
So before we get to MrBeast's philanthropy, we have to do some important groundwork. To make some progress in unravelling the problem, we have to understand the roots of this much wider trend, maybe the most worrying trend of our time.
Because propaganda, lobbying, advertising, public relations, and the ideological weapons used by big business have become so expertly proficient in obfuscation, run so deeply through back channels to avoid regulation, is so entangled in our culture with philanthropy, education, with the media, that big business can make perfect use out of an affable, generous, seemingly decent and well-meaning figure like MrBeast.
What's interesting with prodigious figures like MrBeast is not how they manage to do what they do, but what they tell us about the culture that gave rise to them in the first place. What can MrBeast's success, his approach to business and philanthropy and YouTube and entertainment and sponsorship tell us about American culture, capitalist culture, Western culture, and even more about ourselves?
Every civilization has its myths. Rome had Romulus and Remus, ancient Greece had Zeus and Achilles, India has Brahma and Vishnu, the British Empire had great explorers and civilizers, and myths all have a function, a purpose, a use in society. They all support a narrative about the culture that created them. What is America's myth? Well, I want to start with a quick story. Everyone's heard of Davy Crockett, the ordinary woodsman, the wild king frontiersman, the self-made hero of the American West. He was well known across the country in plays and short stories for his larger-than-life mythical adventures. When the French writer Alexis de Tocqueville toured around America in the wake of its revolution to try to understand what was distinctive about American life, he noted, 2 years ago, the inhabitants of the district of which Memphis is the capital sent to the House of Representatives in Congress an individual named Davy Crockett, who has no education, can read with difficulty, has no property, no fixed residence, but passes his life hunting, selling his game to live, and dwelling continuously in the woods. His competitor, a man of wealth and talent, failed. In Europe, a rise to notoriety from such humble, self-made beginnings was impossible. American culture turned Crockett into a legend. A popular song described him as half horse, half alligator. One man wrote, You have heard of the celebrated Loco Crockett, who can whip his weight in wildcats, jump up higher, fall down lower, and drink more liquors than any man in the state. He is returned now, a very gentle and respectable man. Crockett's meteoric rise became mythical because it seemed to come from nowhere. But as the historian M.J. Heal has noted, this isn't strictly true. Crockett's image was actually carefully crafted by politicians and publishers who believed his image would be useful for their cause, libertarianism on the frontier. The idea of a frontiersman out there on his own, independent, self-reliant, with no need for federal assistance or elite rule was important to the image of democracy that Jacksonian Democrats were trying to sustain in 19th century America. Jacksonians wanted to expand suffrage to the ordinary man, and in Davy Crockett they saw a compelling narrative that would help them achieve this and win the public image battle. And while he was of course real, Davy Crockett became a mythical figure for this reason. He was exaggerated, used, crafted, memorialized, manipulated, and proliferated for political, economic, social, and cultural reasons. Tocqueville noticed this. Crockett fit in with the image of the American out there alone, apt to imagine that their whole destiny is in their own hands. Heal remarked that, realizing the imaginative power of the West, political managers sought to touch responsive chords in the electorate by finding and fashioning political heroes from beyond the Appalachians.
Davy Crockett was one of the first examples of something we love in democratic societies. Underdog stories, adventurers, a self-made man, a man of the people. But stories can be used and misused, appropriated and twisted, reimagined and rewritten in calculative and disingenuous ways.
Mr. Beast is a likeable guy. He's the guy next door. He's the carefree guy having carefree fun with his group of friends. He's ordinary, but he does extraordinary things. What if I filled my friend's house with slime? What if anything you could place in this circle you can keep? What if we went to the Bermuda Triangle? He's also become well known as a generous philanthropist. He's given homeless people homes and $10,000 in cash. He's tipped waitresses $30,000 and given away houses to delivery drivers that turn up at them. Team Trees has organised YouTubers to fundraise to plant 20 million trees, and more recently, Team Seas has done the same to remove 40 million kilograms of trash from the ocean. He's even started a second channel, Beast Philanthropy, where he's given away 10,000 turkeys at Thanksgiving, helped after a hurricane, and set up his own food bank.
And before we move on, it's really important to say this. This is obviously commendable stuff. This video is not an attack on Mr. Beast's personal morals. It's not a question of whether he's a good person or not. I don't know him. He seems like a nice, generous, hard-working guy who's built a hugely impressive YouTube channel and probably just wants to use his influence to do some good in the world. But because he's so influential, because he's successful enough to be close to some significant organisations, non-profit and for-profit, looking at Mr. Beast can tell us a lot about some of the trends he is part of and ultimately benefits from himself.
So let's have a look at some of these giveaways and philanthropic efforts. First, the most obvious thing to note is that Mr. Beast runs a business, a very, very successful one. Jimmy has said openly that the motivation for these giveaways comes from two places. First, he says it is business. They attract views, they make profit. He wants to be the most successful YouTuber in the world, and he's succeeded.
just kept going and reinvesting. And then I tipped pizza delivery people $100, and then I tipped a homeless man 10 grand, and then, gave away cars, gave away houses, and last hand take hand off $1 million keeps it. And basically the entire time. So for the last 8 or 9 years, every dollar I've made, I just spent it the next month on content. And I just did that every single month, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And here we are.
But second, he feels good about doing it. He likes helping people. Let's take a quick look at this first motivation before returning to the second later. Every MrBeast video that involves a giveaway of some kind, whether to a friend, a stranger, a homeless person, is paid for by a sponsor. It's a kind of for-profit philanthropy, or what economist Matthew Bishop coined in 2006 as philanthrocapitalism. Bishop writes that philanthrocapitalism encompasses not just the application of modern business techniques to giving, but also the effort by a new generation of entrepreneurial philanthropists and business leaders to drive social and environmental progress by changing how business and government operate. Philanthrocapitalism has become something of a buzzword over the last few years. It has several features and is broad enough to vary in meaning and scope depending on who you ask and how you look at it, but essentially it's come to mean treating philanthropy as a business, using traditional business methods like a focus on efficiency for philanthropic projects, or expecting a return on an investment in some way or another. The merging of business and philanthropy and the involvement of powerful individuals in philanthropic efforts has become a frequent talking point in recent years, with the rise of institutions like the Gates Foundation, the Clinton Foundation, and phenomena like fair trade. Gates has convinced fellow billionaires like Warren Buffett and Mark Zuckerberg to pledge to donate their fortunes to philanthropic efforts. And MrBeast has become something of a philanthrocapitalist himself, turning giveaways into advertising revenue, food drives into profitable entertainment, and homelessness into a kind of spectacle that pays.
Now, at its best, philanthrocapitalism does some important work. Gates himself has spent considerable resources and effort vaccinating, feeding, and helping significant numbers of impoverished people all around the world. But as several authors have pointed out, as we'll see, some of the trends not only have a darker side, but could actually be doing more harm than good. At its worst, as we'll discover, philanthrocapitalism allows sponsors, donors, and big business to whitewash, greenwash, and conceal or draw attention away from their otherwise questionable business tactics, and propagandize positive spin and public relations to combat disturbing trends that they themselves created and perpetuate.
In this way, figures like MrBeast can sometimes end up spreading corporate messages, believing that they're doing good and sometimes contributing to even more harm. MrBeast sponsors vary. Some, like Skillshare, could be categorized as simple advertisers, exchanging a fee for a short promotional section of a video like this one. There's no claim of philanthropy from the sponsor, and MrBeast uses the money to finance the stunt or the giveaway. In other videos though, as we'll see, the promotion doesn't seem to be the primary objective of the sponsor.
But to understand this trend, we need to quickly look at how philanthrocapitalism became a central part of capitalist culture, before exploring some of the ways we can identify the damage the trend does today, and how MrBeast has participated in those harms, and how YouTube is becoming fertile ground for a disturbing trend.
The late 19th century was the Gilded Age of American capitalism, an era known for greed, corruption, exploitation, and the spread of industrialization and wealth across America. It saw the creation of vast new monopolies in railroads, oil, steel, banking, and media by now household names like Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and John D. Rockefeller. These figures
The Baltimore Ravens finished the 2023 regular season with a 13-4 record and were top 4 in both offensive points per game and defensive points per game allowed. They were the number 1 ranked scoring defense, and on average, they beat their opponent with a score of 28-16. They were the number 1 seed in the AFC, and all the signs were pointing to the Ravens getting to the Super Bowl for a rematch against a team they beat by double digits on Christmas night against the San Francisco 49ers. But as we know, that rematch never came, and they ended up losing in the AFC Championship game to the Chiefs with a score of 17-10. The 2023 Ravens looked like they were destined to be Super Bowl champions, and they fell short of the goal, which brings us to the present day. There's no way around this. The Ravens missed a big opportunity, and they missed their best chance at a Super Bowl